Alright, good evening everyone, welcome to the channel. Tonight we are in Pillars of Eternity. We were pushing through the DLC last week, and the week before that, and the week before that. We are deep in the second DLC, so White March 2. We're looking at trying to knock over all the side quests and tasks and stuff before we hit the dragons or the big battles, such as going back and doing the Siege of Craighold, which is kind of funny because we are real close to the um, level cap. So, all right, before we go any further, got to work out where we were. All right, so in terms of the missions and where we are and what we're doing, we have the last part of the last quest of Act 2 left sitting out as the main quest of the main game. We've done the White March 1, the main quest, sorry, the main DLC quests. We've got the first two missions of the White March 2 open. We are running through, in fact, we're in the mines. That's right, we're in the doing Whispers in the Dark at the moment. So we're running through that right now. His better half was from White March 1. That'd get us to an Alpine Dragon. Burden of Memory, we haven't hit just yet. We haven't got to the Abbey of the Fallen Moon yet. We are waiting till we finish the White March DLC before we do the Battle of Yenwood Field. We haven't headed this way yet, so we've got a few extra things to pick up. We've got the Siege of Craighold to do yet. We've got our other companion quests that are still open, plus the stuff underneath Old Newer. Odd Newer. I thought it was Old Newer. Cade Newer, sorry. Plus you get Durams, etc. Okay, so they're the quests that are open. We also have a handful of tasks still open. We've got to do Nesta, but we want to finish the mines first. We've got the quests here. We will head back to Searing Falls at some point. And the same thing for Elmshore. We haven't gone that way yet. Forget we've got to take that too. And Cade Newer stuff as well. Okay, so we are now down in the Luminescent Caves. So we're on the I'll get to it in just a sec. Whispers in the Dark is the quest we're doing. So we just need to make sure we've got the map so I can see where I'm going. Okay, so yeah, we just came in here last week.
Whew, good thing I sold most of my jewelry.
Okay, what have we got? Bisbrack Brain. Alright, we'll grab all that.
Laying low.
Okay, we'll head up this way.
Now, where were we?
I don't know that I want to go that way. I mean, maybe I do.
I'll teach you a lesson!
Oh, good work, team. Well, that's pretty decent. Tempted to have a look back here at this exit portal of sort. I have no idea where it's going to go, so I'll save and probably regret going through it, but we'll do it nonetheless. What are you? Dominated miner, Mithrak, attack. Oh, there's swords. There's a luminary.
Show 'em how it's done!
Oh, nicely done. And that's leveled up. Oh, beautiful. Good work, Ida.
That's not what I was expecting.
Whew, Good thing I sold most of my jewelry.
Huh. Alright, how am I proceeding here? I'm doing okay.
That's it. Show 'em how it's done. Have to try something else.
Whatever that was effective. Don't think I want to save at this point. Also worth checking to see how the quest back at Kenya is progressing, because that should be the last of the ones we need. Okay, we're looking okay otherwise. Okay, so got all the way up there. Guess it's a bit below that we haven't cleared out yet.
Dead on.
Paralyzed, are they? Okay, Alpha's going to need some rest soon. Right, that's where we came in from. Let's check 5. I'll have to get more soon enough. Alright, so it looks like we've done the eastern half at least. Save again. Huh.
That's worth that rock. That's it.
Oh, that knocked him down. That was nice.
Fear no one.
Come and attack. That was not good. You got yourself stuck, didn't you? Yeah, I think there's going to need to be a rest soon.
I'm on the trail.
Right. I've been down to the nests. Yeah. Something's not filling me with confidence right now. I mean, it's a toss of the coin. Should I rest or just push through? We're going to push through. Okay, this could be very bad. What do we have? We have a brute and 2 luminaries.
I'll teach you a
Come on, attack. That's it.
The door. Release me.
Rest in the lair of a sky dragon. Huh. I wonder... I know who the Alpine dragon is.
I can think of a better place for this stuff.
Again, tempted to save. Alright, things are starting to look a bit scary.
I can think of a better place for this stuff. I can think of a better place for this stuff.
Alright, okay. Stopped and had a chat. I think we've cleared the map otherwise. We definitely need to rest. Pretty sure I've triggered every trap in here. Okay, pod furthest. Got it. Alright, let's save, because I'm not sure it's going to be an automatic thing. So we're going to have a look. Right, we're going to take a rest. And save again, because I'm always cautious. And then charge right in. Not sure how this battle's about to go, but we're about to find out. Right, charge! Right. I don't want to pursue this just yet. Okay. That doesn't look fun. There's a couple of Vithrak as well.
That is disgusting.
Hmm. Ah, poop. No, let's load. That wasn't what I wanted to do. Come on, load. Right. There's an item in inventory I should have picked up. Okay, resolve. Where's my resolve? 8. That's not enough. 16. 15. 14. 11. Take either.
That is disgusting.
Okay. That's not what I told it to do. I told it to take Ida forward to do the discussion. Although, maybe not. Maybe it's main character only. Be nice if I could make Ida take the discussion, but I don't think it's going to let me. Be nice if it did. Anywho, right. All right. No. All right. Let's have a look at my character sheet. Not my character sheet. What am I equipped with? Um. Okay. A resolve of 12. Uh. It's another item I can use. Not really. I don't think. Hmm. We might actually have a meal. Let's go item type. Does any of these have resolve? I don't think so. Nope. That's not bad. I don't think I got dragon meat dish. I'd need dragon meat for that, wouldn't I? Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, it would help to have dragon meat, which I don't have. But what I do have is this neck piece. Resolve. Huh. Leaves me at 12. I would prefer something that gives me resolve. I want a potion, maybe that has a resolve boost to it. Vital essence. I don't. I got recovery, regen. I got regen. It's my potions. Nope. Nope. There are some places I can sleep to get boosting. Constitution. Oh, no, not that. What's my con? 13. Okay, reflex, fortitude, and will. No, I want constitution boost. Nope, nope. Okay, deflection. Nope. Okay, I either want con or res boost. Max endurance? No, I don't need that. Constitution, not concentration. No, I don't have. I thought I had something that would give me the additional boosts. Okay, maybe someone's equipped with it. Nope. Okay, I can get myself to con 816. I have no idea. So if I borrow Athalos belt, maybe there's a pair of boots as well. So yeah, that'll be giving me +3 con. Resolve? No, resolve's not what I need. Nope, nope, nope. See, I thought that was going to give me resolve. No, it did. So that's the thing. I put it on. Resolve was 12. Hmm.
I can think of a better place for this stuff.
Con 16. And Ada had it? No. Nope. Yes. That doesn't stack. Well, there's a problem. I don't think I quite hit the limit I need. Ah, dear. Alright, we're going to go... See what else we can boost with. Con 3. Yeah, I need more than that. Okay, let's have a look. If I rest here... Alright, does anybody else have a secondary thing that... Ah, come on, give me a lot. Nope. Like an exhortation of will or something. Accuracy, endurance. No. Combat only. No. Oh, that'll give me the resolve. But I can only use it in combat, which is a problem. I mean, one of the other options is to go back to a place where I can rest and, like in a tavern or maybe Makakei Niwa, that should give me bonuses as well. Plus survival. Maybe there's a scroll. That would be a thing to check. Because I do have a fair amount of scrolls in the inventory that I'm not actually using right now. Let's see, prayer against treachery, maelstrom, confusion, hailstorm, concussive, crit, valor. What is valor? Accuracy. What is stag's horn? Revival, prayer against restraint that prevents hobbled, etc. That's straight enough. Plus law, I don't want law. Don't want nature's mark. I mean, we could just go straight into the battle. Maybe we'll try that.
Is that thing looking at us? Lay on hands or go reviving. No, he's not down yet. Maybe lay on hands, that might work. Zawa, yep, got it. Got it.
Show 'em how it's done! Aztec worth and rock!
We're going to go for Flames of Devotion, attack.
We're losing.
Itamak got knocked down, so that's alright.
Not very helpful.
Dead on!
No one!
Gonna knock it down and take it out. Alright, so maybe we didn't need to try and work out our best solutions. And done. Hooray! Not great. Silver Flash. I don't know that I have
I can
need
think
for
of a
that.
better place for this stuff.
Not a sound.
Hmm. I'm going to explore in just a minute. I didn't finish. Didn't finish looking at the caves, but I reckon that'd be the fast way out. Possibly, probably. But we should be pretty close to finishing Whispers in the Dark, which will be another side quest down. Oh, you're kidding. That's not what I planned to do. No, that is that way. Yep. Oh, right. Okay. Well, that was nice. Oh, good work, me. I'm
You
guessing...
must gather your party before venturing forth.
Come on, Nidamok. Even the pig made it. G'day, Lord Typer. How are you, mate? I looked at the time I started this morning. It was 1:30 your time. I seem to be 8 hours ahead of you at the moment. I won't be doing that tomorrow, though. Unfortunately, I have an appointment at that time that I have to go and attend to. That's a big name. A lot of ranting and raving. And the thing is, let me just have a quick check of something. There's a couple of things. The news down here, and it's something. No, probably not. Probably not. You see, the funny thing is, we had news this afternoon pop through this afternoon. A whole bunch of things popped through saying that. Well, big news we had was Nepal burning things. Not a problem because everyone hated the fact they got social media taken off them. I didn't say anything about the flotilla, well, one boat to Gaza, but the fact that they went and cried that they got hit by a drone when it would look to be a flare that one of them dropped on the boat is kind of funny. I think that's kind of funny. The other thing that popped up, and everyone started running around in circles screaming about it, was something in like suspected drone attacks in Poland. But the thing is, if that was for real, there would have been news being screamed all over the place, especially now that the US is up. Nothing. It vanished, which makes me think it was either a misdirected drone from somebody else, or there was nothing. Which just goes to show that the media down here is just insane. Well, there's nothing online about it now. I mean, the last time they said the Russians dropped something on Poland, it was a Ukrainian missile that had been fired 180 degrees out of whack. So they'd mucked up their numbers when putting in the targeting, and it flew off in the wrong direction. But the point being, even if it was stuff happening, there's no reason for the media not to say anything. That's the point. I mean, I'm still seeing more stuff about the Swedish health minister falling over live on TV. That's the point, though. There's nothing in the news right now. There was a big burst. If they were going to invoke Article 5, then the news would be swarming with it. There'd be footage and stuff all over the place. There's nothing.
Whoa.
Absolutely nothing.
My hands do not look like that. Whoa.
Let's have a look at the news. So there was some news 9+ hours ago. There's a little bit of stuff. Now, what I take from that, and obviously not talking about all that stuff too much today. All right, here's the thing. All right, okay. So okay. It's Article 5 is the one that they're looking about. Okay, so the articles don't say or show anything, which is already immediately a concern as to what they were. I mean, something flew into Polish airspace and was shot down. That much is not in denial. The statements that I've seen are not definitive. It just says that they suspect them to be what they were. The thing that, I mean, okay, yeah, potentially there was, I mean, it's potentially the case. I suspect that if they were Russian, they were off track. But there's no... So when the missile landed in Polish territory before, there were photos, very clear photos, of the missile and everything else that showed up in the wreckage. And it was pretty evident, even from the start, where it had originated from and who'd shot it. Here, there's no pictures. Yeah, people like to get excited. I no, I the advice I'd give people: sit on hands. Sit on hands. You sit on hands and let the situation develop. Find out what caused what. Because the question is, okay, what sort of drones were they? Where were they launched from? What sort of range did they have? I mean, it's it's entirely possible. I mean, I don't deny that everybody threw jets up to react to it and respond to it. I would like to see imagery of the shot down devices. I gotta say, I really don't think that they would have done that intentionally. That's the point. Well, no, I don't buy that, and I don't buy that for many reasons. It is well known and been published for many years that the poles have um, Aegis type integrated radars that are well sighted. No, no, that's speculation. Um, Polish integrated air defence systems are quite well known, so it's. I would say that that's scuttlebutt. That's just rumor, is what I'd say. Um, did I purchase that? Please tell me I purchased that this time. I did say it. But here's the thing: if given how much coverage there was in Australian news and everything else when the parliamentary building in Kiev was hit, or some of the other places were hit, the telling aspect is how quickly it disappears from the news, the news cycle. And this appeared in a great rush. There was a big sudden push for reporting, and I'm like, okay, sit, wait, watch. If real stuff was going on, you'd expect a continued build-up of reporting. Now that it's daytime over there in Europe, well, it's after lunch. I would have expected more news by now, but then it vanished. So, in terms of watching or doing things militarily, seeing things like that, it's like question. It's like when the tank recovery vehicle went missing in, was it Estonia or something? It was like 20 k's from the border with Belarus, and the rhetoric I heard non-stop about how the Russians had somehow captured a tank recovery vehicle. And I'm like, well, hang on, where was it? What was it doing? Was it part of an exercise? What sort of terrain was it in? It's in swampy, marshy terrain. I'm like, it's at the bottom of a swamp. It's at the bottom of a bog. Oh, no, 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 no. The Russians captured it and this and that. And we can't find the people and it's all naughty Russians. A week later, they pulled it out of the bottom of the bog. And it's like, yeah, that's part of the problems of operating in that. Only if you listen to the media. All right? I don't give away what I've done in the past. Watching, looking, listening to what's taken place here. Uh, it it doesn't smell right. All right, we'll go with that. It doesn't smell right. And if it is entirely potentially okay. There's two possible outcomes. Okay, the fact something flew into Poland, shot down, crashed, no one denies. That definitely happened. So the question is, what was the source? Who fired it? So you've got two options. You got the Russians, you got the Ukrainians. The Russians were engaged in a mass aerial strike across Ukraine at the time. So is it possible that a number of the weapons slash platforms headed in the wrong direction? Yeah, entirely possible. I haven't looked on the map to see whether where they landed in Poland were aligned with um, sites in Ukraine that would have been targeted, which indicates it was probably a heading error or a heading bug, something like that. Lack of precision navigation, that's possible. To know what sort of platform they were will tell you the sort of range, and so that will tell you whether it's possible that it could have been launched from Russian territory or whether it had to be launched much closer. And as far as I'm aware, there aren't Russian ground forces operating in the western half of Ukraine. There may be, but nothing formalized. So that then either says it has to be something like a Kinzhal, if it was a missile, or some sort of drone that has the range to reach from Russian launch points within Russian territory. Okay? Alternative 2, it was launched from within Ukraine. Now, that may not go down very well with a lot of people, but you've got to look at
This is
what
great and
was
all,
the prior
but I think
incident
I'd be having more fun
with
swinging from that tree back home.
with weapons landing inadvertently or otherwise in Ukraine. And it was a missile that was initially blamed on Russians, but would have been fired from Ukraine with presumably a tracking error. It appeared to be launched 180 degrees out of alignment. Now, had it been launched on the intended alignment, it would have landed in Russia. Launched in the opposite direction, it landed in Poland. Having seen the footage of um, Ukrainian operations of air defense equipment in 2022, does not surprise me that someone, particularly with the amount of ordnance being fired every day, that an error happens at some point and a missile ends up somewhere it shouldn't. Poland isn't the only place to receive something like that. It's also happened, pretty sure, down in Moldova as well. So there's been more than one incident where that's happened. So the question then is, if it was launched from Ukraine, the question is why? Was it a directional error? And was it meant to go to targets in Russia or within Russian-held territory? Or was it meant more to try and escalate things? All right, I don't necessarily think it's that. It would be worthwhile to find out, to see imagery of what the platforms were. The fact nothing has come forward or nothing's been published has my spider senses tingling. And I think part of the lesson to come out of the first 18 months of the conflict was that every time there was a claim of a missile attack or something like that, and they showed footage or showed imagery of people working on defusing weapons or parts of the weapon and stuff like that, it was able to be identified that it was something completely different. And there has been a very strong sense of propaganda to come out of both sides. And when you hide missile launchers, tells underneath shopping centres, and then those shopping centres get hit, you'll kind of lose the moral superiority to argue your case as being morally correct. And so the question then is, without seeing the physical evidence, to then work out range and launch points and things like that. The other part too is, the articles say the warnings came out of Ukraine. I would go so far as to say that there are probably 2 or 3 nations out there, or there would be a group of people out there not directly involved in the conflict, but who are present in the region, who would have a very, very good understanding of where they were launched from and where they ended up. That information probably isn't being shared. But seeing how much the story suddenly stopped getting reported on
I was never
suggests
any
that
good at the quiet
that
game.
information has been, elements of that information have been shared, and as a result, people have stopped talking about it because what was observed by those nations doesn't match up with what everyone else is saying. And so you've got to sort of stop, look, listen, and listen to the reporting as well. The last time Article 5 was enacted, or they attempted it for Afghanistan and whatnot, the rhetoric and everything was way through the roof. That's not being seen now. So yes, I can understand the feeling through what the media might be saying and everything else. But there are plenty of examples over history where the media has been used to escalate conflict or to push people into a course of military action that was later found to be false. The most recent example, Iraq 2003. Or even Nord Stream 2. I don't know what the reporting in Germany was like, but the reporting seen here in Australia was that it was the Russians who destroyed Nord Stream 2. But anybody who stopped to think for half a second didn't bother to ask how the Russians got all the way into the Baltic, into near Denmark, to blow up their own gas supply, or even stop to consider why that might not make sense. Okay, so okay, right. I see your point about the attacks on infrastructure. Who claimed that? Who in your media is claiming that? Because what I've seen here was very limited, but I'm not going to say who I've seen until, I mean, it's not one of the groups you think it is. Well, see, okay, the talk of Russian jets over Poland and things like that, that stuff hasn't happened. The sort of thing when you say, oh no, Russian jets did this and airspace that, it's meant to make you frightened. What they're doing is entirely legal, entirely within international rules and laws and everything else. The fact airspace you nominally control in terms of telling aircraft where to go extends beyond 12 miles from your borders or India maritime regions is immaterial from a international legal perspective because military aircraft or state aircraft can operate up to that 12-mile limit of a maritime border and not have it be an issue. Okay, all countries do that. It just makes the media whenever the Russians fly anywhere near Norway or try and operate in the Baltics or out um, north of Scotland and things like that. But it's normal routine operations. It's like there was an exercise recently where they claimed the Russians were shadowing them. And it's like, well, they're in international waters. They're keeping clear of the exercise. There is nothing that they're doing wrong. They're doing exactly the same thing everyone else does, which is attempt to collect intelligence on what's going on in an exercise. They're not interfering. So there is no legal, even like no one in the UN is going to slam them for it. No one's going to. But you read the newspaper articles or listen to the TV and everyone else, and you're like, right, that's it. Let's march on Moscow. And it's like, well, hold on, sit on hands and stop and look and think about it. All right, everybody does this. Now, there was an example during the Syrian conflict when Turkey shot down a Russian aircraft. And apparently in the media it's like, oh, they gave lots of warnings. And the Russian aircraft didn't respond. Well, even in, like, they gave exact details of where they shot them down. I went and looked at it on the charts and everything else. The Russians didn't need to respond to Turkey because the Russians were operating within Syria. They stayed within Syrian border. They stayed within the Syrian boundaries and everything else. And what you had, in essence, was the Turks doing a cross-border incident, shooting down a Russian aircraft in Syria. And now, the whole thing of Russians currently bombing Turkmen at the time, so Turkmen being the ethnic group in that part of Syria, obviously upset the Turks, but in terms of international law, the Russians, being an ally of Syria and invited to be there, had more legal right to be operating where they were. And the Turks conducted an international incident by shooting down the Russians. Okay, so that's the thing. It's every time you see this, and this is part of the reason I started doing the whole just chatting chat, because there is so much of this rhetoric and inflammatory stuff that comes out, and it's designed to make people angry. It's misinformation. It's designed to make people feel upset about what's going on. And the reality often follows way too late. Often follows much, much, much later. But by which time you've taught a generation to hate. You've used horrible rhetoric to get somewhere. Now, all right. You obviously heard a week or so ago about the Ukrainian politician assassinated in Western Ukraine, I'm guessing. Now, I will ask you, do you know what his political leanings were? I mean, it was important that he'd been involved in Ukrainian politics since before Ukraine gained independence in the 1990s. So he was an elder statesman, effectively. But I don't even know if you'll be able to look at his Wikipedia page in Germany. because the party he founded was, well, socialist nationalists. Now, just because you rearrange the words, you can pretty much work out what NatSoc is, what it's another name for. And he was active when Euromaiden was going on, and so you had Azov and you had all the other bits and pieces, and you got this guy who said, "Oh, they've said, oh no, he distanced himself from that. He founded the party. His politics shouldn't have drifted that far from what he founded." Having someone like that running around high profile during Euromaiden and the immediate aftermath just helps makes Russia's case for them about the politics of the people involved in Ukraine and having an undue influence in what was going on. And so I then asked the question, who had to gain from him being assassinated? Well, he was not as active in Ukrainian politics anymore. So, I mean, it was entirely possible the Russians took him out. But at the same time, ensuring that someone like that no longer continued to espouse those sort of ideas also benefits Ukraine. And so the question is there a justification for somebody else to have assassinated him? Like, who would gain from him dying? And once you start asking that question, you then start looking at, well, you go through these thought exercises of, without them being there, how do you proceed? And it's like when one of the main negotiators was assassinated in 2022. Quite clearly, the direction then was, right, the conflict is going to escalate. With that negotiator's assassination, chances of peace in 2022 basically evaporated. Both sides were pretty much locked in after that, and it sends a message that if one of the peace negotiators is killed by his own side, then it sends a message to the other side that there is no intent to come to a peaceful resolution. Now, I leave that as an exercise for the reader to find out whose side he was on,
If only everyone
whose
could
side he
see
represented,
this.
and who knocked him off. Which is why um, it's just sad that the whole thing's been allowed to continue. Every time it looks like there's going to be progress, one side escalates or pushes buttons that they shouldn't. And the saddest thing is there's a generation bleeding into the mud that doesn't need to. It's already causing demographic issues in Ukraine that uh, the nation, irrespective of what happens from now on, even if everything was completely resolved tonight, the next 100 years, it's destroyed itself. Um, will the diaspora come home? Probably not. And which is why you need to sit on hands until you pick up a gun and stand in defense of your nation. It's one reason why I'm a firm advocate of only having, well, not letting politicians who've had no military experience or no skin in the game from making military decisions like this. Problem was also we've had a big period where there were a lot of officers who came through who had only peacetime experience, and um, and so there's almost a change in almost a change in willingness to go engage in military action if you've already seen what it can do and been and experienced it firsthand, not just through the media, but having been and done it. It's one of the reasons there was, I guess, such a reluctance in the 1920s and 1930s to allow things to build up the way they did, like the peace in our time and everything else. Where have I ended up? Well, see, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of uninformed rhetoric, and even looking at people like OSINT Defender or it's easy for people to pretend that they're experts. So I tried looking at casualty statistics out of Ukraine, and even the academic papers that I was seeing, or the people that claimed to have expert knowledge in things, I had a look at them. They were nothing more than, how did I loop around? That was not good. They're little more than speculation, and there was nothing that could be found for corresponding Ukrainian casualties. And so when I looked at what their actual methodology was and what their source was, it's like you're an order of magnitude in error because you're lacking specific details. Both sides aren't sharing the information. Now, back before 2022, when OSCE were present, so between 2014 and 2022, they were able to publish figures that were fairly reliable, but they were limited by what sites they were permitted to access. And that was the issue. That you can only say what you see. So if you're not being allowed to see things, you can't say what happened. And so any attempt to find a reliable information about what's happening on both sides just isn't there. It's not being seen. And when you're operating in a vacuum of information like that, it means that anything you hear has to be tempered with the reality, or tempered with caution, because nothing's validated, nothing's verified. You're only being fed the information one side wants you to see. And you're the rhetoric that people pump out whenever something happens. Now, okay, so there were big Russian attacks in the last week, but I talked about this the other day, it's almost like Israel and Gaza. You say, okay, well, this incident happened. Why did this incident happen? Oh, because the other side did this. All right, well, why did they do that? Oh, because the first side did this. Okay, well, why did they do that? And you keep winding it back and forth. And at some point, you've got to draw a line, because everyone's going to say, oh, no, they're going to draw back as far as they want to look to say, oh, here's the point of origin of our grievance. So the recent Russian drone attacks and air attacks, in part, are in response to the refinery attacks that the Ukrainians have been undertaking and celebrating all over media. It's like, all right, one side is permitted to attack like that without criticism. You can't cry when the other side punches back. And when the other side punches back, sometimes things go right. I'm sure the drones that landed in the wrong spot, it's like when they attacked the air bases deep in Russia. How they did that was a war crime. And I think there was lots of celebrating in the media for what happened. But I'm like, you've just put evidence online of carrying out a war crime. Okay, so you had two belligerents involved, not a problem. They were legitimate military targets, not a problem. But you used civilian assets, the shipping containers, the trucks, to move the weapons into position and launch them. The people driving the trucks had no idea what was in the trucks. They were just truckers. It's a war crime called perfidy. You cannot use civilian camouflage or hide your military action behind civilians, not human shields. But you can't pretend, for example, merchant raiders, for example, skirt the line on this because they run up the flag of the navy and show their weapons before they started using them. So they'd use the merchant shipping outline to draw the opposition in, misdirection. But in essence, it's perfidy. So that is a war crime. Plain and simple. It's in the Geneva Conventions. You can go look it up. Now, that disappeared rather quickly because I think there are a few military lawyers in NATO who went, we shouldn't be celebrating this because you've made a case against Putin to eventually put him in the ICC. You've gone and advertised all over the media around the world your own actions, which don't align. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. There is a wealth of misinformation out there. I get why Europe, Western Europe, is afraid of the bear. I understand that. But rushing in headlong into this sort of stuff based on the rhetoric out of people out of Brussels is not going to help anyone. Okay, it's not going to help anyone. Now, things may escalate, things may wind down. Either option is possible, but it doesn't help anyone, doesn't help the nations, doesn't help the militaries, etc., to push things forward the way they are. Okay, who else took territory from Czechoslovakia when um, when the Germans were allowed to take the Sudetenland? And not only that, they were permitted to do that. In fact, the other nations went, yeah, sure, go ahead. Who else took that territory? No, I'm not talking appeasement. I'm not talking appeasement at all. That was people say Chamberlain was ineffectual because he appeased Hitler. The truth is a little bit more nuanced than that because England was very much not on a war footing.
This reminds me of that
They
time
hadn't
across the
done
white that
any
wins. Alone.
development. I mean, the people they pulled out of Dunkirk were marginally better equipped than at the end of World War One. Like Germany at the start of the war had a clear technological advantage and had been prepping compared to the English. I mean, they were fighting a rearward battle for the first couple of years because they just did not have the capability, had not invested in it in the interwar years. And so Chamberlain, when he came home, was basically, we need to change that. Now, yep, he'd come home with a peace in our time announcement. No, I don't think the appeasement is the same. No, no, I don't. I the more I look at how the major powers in the Axis worked during World War II, the more I realise that England and the US looked the other way on what Russia was doing at the time, and they knew about it too. I don't feel that at the moment, with what's happening with Russia and Ukraine and Europe and everybody else, no, I don't feel that that escalation's there. And when you look at, say, what's happened in the Black Sea, um, when Turkish shipping was affected, it was because the Ukrainians had launched sea mines that they lost control of, and they'd floated into shipping channels. Where things will escalate is because of an accident or a series of accidents. I I feel having seen what was used to justify Iraq in 2003, Afghanistan in 2001, Somalia in the 1990s, Yugoslavia in the 1990s, Libya in the late 2000s, Mali, where the French currently are, and a range of other military interventions in the last 30 years. I don't see the same thing here in Ukraine. At least listening to what both sides have to say, and the difference here is that we can actually hear what both sides have to say about what started. No, no, no. I don't think. I I don't think Russia invading eastern Ukraine is the same as Germany taking the Sudetenland. No. In part, a big part because Putin in 2021 and before laid out very clear reasons for why he'd invade if he was going to invade, and those rationale were met. Now, that's called casus belli. You can argue whether that casus belli was legitimate. The casus belli for 2003 invasion of Iraq was WMD and the aluminium tubes. Now, the US and its partners blatantly ignored the feedback coming from UN weapons inspectors and a whole bunch of other people because they created this justification for going in. And when General Powell at Sec State at the time made his speech to the UN General Assembly, that was the US telling the world, this is what we're going to attack Iraq for. This is them establishing their casus belli. Now, I was standing next to a military intelligence officer at the time, and I said to him, the US is establishing a case for war. And they went, oh, that'll never happen. 3 months later, troops marched across the border, and there were build-ups in troops and everything else. So when one belligerent or person about to enter the conflict tells you, I'm going to cross the border and start shooting people if this continues or if this happens, you listen to them, because they will also tell you what their conditions for ending it are roughly at the same time. And he did that. He laid it out. Now, so far, it looks like he's followed that. It looks like Russia has largely kept to that casus belli, which is why personally I don't think they're going to go any further west. Doesn't stop the rhetoric, but that's why I don't think it's any further. So, all right. Who has the legitimacy for the northern half of Cyprus? All right. Up until the Turkish invasion, it was Greek. Now, the Turks and Greece were part of NATO. But the world kind of went, you know what, the Turks can have it. And that's Turkey's kind of not really
part of any
European, but that's two NATO members basically having fisticuffs. the the shift of European borders and everything else continues. Like I said, the whole idea of borders being static in Europe is only a relatively new thing. The Alsace belonged to Germany, now it's part of France. South Tyrol belonged to Austria, now it's part of Italy. Well, that's no more than 100 years old. The state of Poland, the boundaries of Poland were only set at the end of World War II. Hell, part of Western Ukraine is Polish. No one's screaming for them to give that back to Poland. All right, Turks are an interesting thing. I think Erdogan is trying to be trying to bring the Ottoman Empire back. People, the Americans largely give the Turks a free pass on a lot of things because they need Incirclic. They need that airbase. Plus, they need unfettered access to the Black Sea. And the last time that the Turks or the Ottomans threatened to shut the Bosporus, bad things happened. Lots of bad things happened. And yeah, the Turks throw a lot of rhetoric around. I know the Hungarians don't like them. The Bulgarians hate them as well. And they're like, you'll never join the EU so long as we're here. And yeah, that's yeah, they try to punch above their weight for sure. And so, but your fear of what could happen again in the future, well, it's part of the whole reason the UN exists. All right, I understand why like the Balkan states like Estonia fear Russia. I mean, the amount of hateful rhetoric I've heard from people saying, "Oh, the Russians are doing this and that in Estonia." It's like, okay, let's go back 20 years. I can, and because they're saying about it from an information security point of view, I can point to my um, website access logs that I had and show you which nations in that region were responsible for most of the attacks coming against websites at the time, or were responsible for most of the online issues coming out of that region. And it's also like people have forgotten or have washed away all the issues that Ukraine was perceived to have pre-2014 about the people trafficking and corruption and all this other bits and pieces. None of that seems to have stopped or changed. But now everything is taken as the gospel truth. And that's dangerous in itself. And sadly, a lot of this stuff will only ever become more apparent with hindsight once the situation is allowed to settle and the history gets better understood. It's scary living through these periods of rapid historic change because you don't know when you're in the incident which way to go, which way is the right way. There may not be a right way. There might be multiple correct ways. There's no no one right answer. There's plenty of wrong ones, and uh, and so it's like, well, we don't need every talking head out there to fan the flames of war, especially if they haven't been and stood on the line. And I think it would be a terrible thing if people escalated, in part because most conflicts in the last 50 years have been, by one side, massively overwhelming another in terms of capability and everything like that. What we've seen since 2022 is that the, well, the term for it, the Wunderwaffe, the, the much vaunted Western military advantage isn't. And they lost, technically they lost in Iraq, they lost in Afghanistan, they struggled in Libya, and if anything, Russia's managed to drain the logistics supply chains of the West without lifting a finger. That should be more concerning. Warehouses are empty of ordnance. You're almost talking about a reverse Justin Aries. But yeah, I mean, I get why there is fear of what there is to the east. But you should probably also ask yourself how much of that is being stirred unnecessarily. Would the world change if that disappeared? Or would they find someone else for you to hate? Um, it's it's things like this, I think, and I honestly believe things like this is part of the reason why parties like the AFD are getting the support they are, because people are sick of being told what to think and how to think, and the loss of national identity and the ability to stand up for yourself. It had a good run. Globalism had a good run, but even what there was Norway's elections. Labour, the left party, won, but the biggest gain was from,
Whoa.
as they call it, a
My
populist
hands
right
do
party.
not look like that.
And so, yeah, I mean, France just lost their PM. The AFD are threatening in the elections coming very shortly. Romania, people have alleged all sorts of nasty things about what happened in Romanian elections recently. Like I was saying in one of the streams the other day, I mean, the Reform Party in the UK is gaining ground. There is a groundswell of a shift towards these right-wing parties, these right-leaning parties, and obviously, the further right you go, the worse things get. But it's a return to conservatism. I don't believe the conservative parties have as much of an issue with what Russia's doing as the progressives, the Greens, the CDU, um, the socialists, all that sort of stuff. And as more and more nations go through their elections and move further right, I think the support for Ukraine and what's going on there is falling away. And I did mention this on stream that the I, I watch the Tour de France every year, and so you get to see lots of people standing on the side of the road trying not to knock bike riders off their bikes. But what you see is a lot of flags, a lot of low-level protest type things. So 2022, 2023, every second flag was blue and yellow. Fair enough. This year, non-existent. I watched the entire thing. I don't think I saw a single Ukrainian flag. And I was like, well, that's a change. Seeing some of the marches in Europe, well, not so much Belgrade. Belgrade sort of Russian, I mean, Serbia's half Russian aligned anyway. But seeing some of the other parades and stuff through Europe, what changed is now we see Palestinian flags and almost nothing else. And that should be a worry to the people supporting Ukraine, because it means the public awareness, the eye of the public has shifted. People aren't paying attention anymore. Once they stop paying attention, once they start forgetting, who's going to care what goes on? And that should obviously worry people while things are still going on. But then again, I said it almost looks like people can only protest one thing at a time. But it was a big shift. It was an observed shift. So if political leaders, political parliaments and stuff like that are moving conservative, and you're seeing the disappearance of protests in support of Ukraine out in the public, what trend do you think is happening? Where do you see support for a peaceful resolution shifting? People are either going to support one side or the other or both. me reading the tea leaves is saying that support for Ukraine is not necessarily evaporating. It's shifted. They've lost the high ground. Their strongest bargaining position, 2022. They were told not to. After that, maybe 2023, before they lost Mariupol completely. Um, but once that was done and the Russians were able to dig in, it's then bleeding a nation into the mud. I don't see it. People, well, see, if that's the case, why aren't people out there protesting that, it, making more of a noise? Why aren't people out there making more noise, making an effort to stop it now? Well, and see, that's the thing. So you said SPD still, that that that, that's where it heads. And I mean, I understand it's an unpopular take, but that's just me as an external observer listening to what filters through into the media and on social media and stuff as well. Doing my best to listen to multiple takes and multiple perspectives and everything else, filtering that through my own experience, filtering that through my knowledge of the progress of various conflicts in in recent decades, and trying to draw a conclusion that is likely. Whether or not it happens, I don't know. No one knows for sure. But yeah, it's not going to be easy. That's for sure. And I, yeah, I don't. I, I don't see. Sadly, I don't see Ukraine gaining much back. They've they've lost their strongest negotiating position. Eventually, enough of their supporters will walk away from them, and they're going to find out just who actually likes them. And at that point, Russia will probably get everything they asked for. I I don't see Russia wanting to go any further west. They don't want Kiev. They don't want Western Russia, Western Ukraine. Probably don't want Western Russia either. Um, but it means Putin will walk away with pretty much everything he asked for. And when over half the globe's population supports Russia, you need to ask yourself why you're taking a position on the other side. There are, I mean, with China and India on Russia's side, ask yourself. Well, I mean, here's a thought exercise that you should use to try and work out whether the position you're taking you can morally justify or you will feel comfortable with if it gets reversed or has to get reversed down track. I mean, I've worked with people who fought in Iraq in 2003, 2004, came home, felt fully, keyed up about what they did, all happy and confident that they did the right thing. They fought a legitimate war. By 2012, they'd had enough of an understanding about the actual causes and and the whole reason why it got kicked off, to suddenly realise that that moral justification never existed. That where they felt they were fighting for the right reason, realised that, if anything, the Iraqis were fighting for the right reason and they were the aggressor. That they were fighting an unjust war. Now, no war is ever really justified, but it broke them. And so the point to take is you need to be able to justify the. It's almost like a scientific paper taking the null position, disproving the null result of, okay, what if the position you're taking is the wrong one? How do we know that that's not the case? All right, so let's take that as a thought exercise. You've got NATO, you've got Russia, you've got NATO, you've got the US, you've got, in fact, we use the old first world, third world, second world breakdown. Okay, Switzerland was a third world nation. So the old first world, second world breakdown was first world was US, NATO, Western Europe, and allied nations. The second world were Eastern Bloc, Russia, Warsaw Pact, and other associated nations, and hangers-ons. Third world were non-aligned. So hence Switzerland, under that designator, was a third world nation. So what we're looking at basically is first world versus second world still. The attempts to economically strike Russia through sanctions failed. Around that time, a lot of Western economies really struggled, and the attempts by there's all sorts of things happening in Western economies and Western military supply chains to go, that didn't work. Yet the Russian economy didn't seem to be that great afflicted. Moralizing. We're supporting, or nominally supporting, a state that up until 2014 was regarded as one of the most corrupt nations in the world and had horrible examples of human trafficking and everything else. Yet, despite the nation swinging back and forth between EU and Russian alignment, the hand was forced by Euromaidan and pretty clearly by the US through Victoria Nuland and others into a more pro-EU stance. Okay, so you've forced the game a few years early. Okay, fine, Yanukovych, go away. No one's arguing that he wasn't corrupt, etc. But if you want the world to accept that the people have spoken and this is their desire, you must also accept the will of people within the nation who are like, no, we've never agreed to this, we never liked this. By virtue of how the nation was created and everything like that, we have a far stronger alignment or historic connection to Russia or Belarus or whatever. If we have to be fair to the Western
My hands
Ukrainians,
do not
give them
look like that.
their position in Europe or their alignment to Europe, we've got to give the same amount of credit to the Eastern Ukrainians and their desire to remain close to Russia. They're just as valid in that justification. Same with Crimea and Odessa and places like that. All right, so Euromaidan happens. It's over. We watch Ukrainian parliamentarians march to the edge of the rooftop to take oaths of loyalty. The unasked question is, what if they refused? Would they have been launched off the rooftop into the baying mob? Well, at the time no one refused, probably because they felt they couldn't. Eastern Ukraine was like, Donetsk, Luhansk was like, no, we don't like this. We don't want any part of this. Odessa tried, but then the footage of what took place in the Union building, of the deaths that happened there, came out. are the people who died in Odessa any less worthy than the people who died in Kiev? They're all Ukrainians. Are the desires of Luhansk and Donetsk to retain Russian alignment any less valid than the desires of people in the West to become European aligned? If we're being fair, then no, it's not. Okay, nation comes out of Euromaidan, has now got a very much an EU aligned leadership. All right, most people are still, oh, cool, it's happened. It's kind of the end of the whole uh, Arab Spring, which was a nightmare in and of itself. The amount of bloodshed that was unnecessary that took place, and the number of nations that ended up a lot more hardlined as a result. I don't think the Arab Spring was a success. I mean, Syria bled itself into the sand for many years, but we're talking Ukraine. So we now have a nation that is internally split and has always been internally split. They've always had a demographic split, east-west. All right, you've got to make both sides happy in order to work together as a single nation. Coming out of Euromaidan, they told the East to go screw itself. It's the EU or the highway. And they were like, well, we don't want that. Lo and behold, Luhansk and Donetsk tried to strike for independence because, hey, Euromaidan work. Why can't they try work? The rest of Ukraine went, no, you can't do that, and started an internal conflict. All right, so we're at the point now, 2014 to 2022, where Donetsk and Luhansk are trying to hang on to an identity that the rest of Ukraine's trying to eradicate. If we look at how people search for national identity, we look at what happened to Yugoslavia. We allowed Yugoslavia to be torn apart and allowed all those peoples to gain their own national identities and their own nations. Yet at the same time, you look at the Basques and you tell them, no, you can't have your own state. You tell the Catalans, no, you can't have your own state, that you both belong to Spain. That the various other little groups around Europe trying to split off, no, you can't do that. All right. But some people are permitted to have nationhood more than others. It's not an even thing. And so 2014 to 2022 is a period where fundamentally it's an attempt by people, different peoples within Ukraine, to try and sort things out. Quite clearly, the result of the Euromaidan and being fed whatever they're told from people in the West is no, you don't let them hang on to Russia. Okay, fine. At which point Donetsk and Luhansk turn and look over the border and say, hey, this is a problem, please help. And Russia goes, okay, well, and see, this is the first part that really said bad things were going to come down the pipeline, was Russia acknowledged their independence. Went, okay, if we have to accept Euromaidan, we'll accept you guys claiming independence. Not a problem. Oh, and we'll help protect you if needs be. Fast forward to 2022, and we now have everybody across the border. Now, were there men in white hats or men in green hats that came across the border, troops on a holiday, that sort of thing? Yeah, quite possibly. But you get to the point in the start of 2022 where Putin feels that the people of Donetsk and Luhansk, who he's recognized as people seeking an identity, and he's granted it to them, as no different to what everybody west of that went and sought. And so he rolls over the border, and we're into, well, the last 3 years. And as a result, things aren't as clear-cut as people ever would like them to do. All that nuance and context disappears from reporting. It's like, oh no, Russia's doing X, Y, Z. Well, if you'd listened to what the neighbours were saying, this is what he said he was going to do. Okay, might he have been lying and he wants to do everything else? Yeah, possibly. Has he shown that to be the case? No. As of yet, no. It's sad that this came out of what should have been a celebration of a change in political direction in Kiev. And people felt empowered. People feeling empowered is great, but the problem was they felt empowered to suppress anybody with a different viewpoint. And they looked down on the parts of the population that felt more Russian and felt that they had closer ties to Russia. When you demeanor people within your own population, within your own borders, why are you surprised when somebody comes along to stand up for them? All right, it you allow the narrative to be shaped. Well, I will say, if you want to catch everything I've been saying, go and look at the YouTube stream afterwards, if they allow that. There's no ads over there. But yeah, so that's why personally I think the whole situation is not as clear cut as people think, and why I might take a position people say, well, that's
This is
unfounded.
great and all,
Well, I've
but I
just
think I'd be having more fun swinging from that
given
tree back
a
home.
worked example from 2014 onwards as to why I think the situation is going to be the way it is. And also why I think the rhetoric about the fear of people coming west is unfounded. And yeah, I stopped watching the news, but I certainly keep tabs on the media and stuff. And yeah, that's why I started my Just Chatting streams, so I could do this sort of stuff on those streams. Yeah, I hope for peace. Like I hope that whatever the incident was in Poland was an accident by whoever it was that launched them. You can't change the fact that it happened. You can't change the fact of who launched them, which we don't know, but we do know. So it did happen. So you can't change that. What you can change and what you can influence is what comes next. So, yeah, yeah, that's my take on things. Like I said, probably very unpopular. Okay, we talked to Forum in Izmir. We took care of it. We ended that. All right, we're going to take a hit to reputation here because I don't think Gamel was responsible. I mean, he was okay. No one knows in the investigation that he did it. We're assuming that he did it. What we do know is that he was under the influence of the spores and he had no control over that. So if he conducted the murder, then he shouldn't necessarily be blamed for it. So we'll go with that. We'll take the hit in population on reputation, but yeah. All right, so we've completed that quest, which is nice. Nesta, we can talk to her. Okay, so part of this, there is actually a change in right. Okay, the Vithrak are still there, but they're fine. Um, we don't need the Crucible Knights because that's going to upset Stalwart. We've just taken a hit to reputation. You, well, I suspect you're too young to remember, well, to have been around when the Berlin Wall came down and the Iron Curtain fell. Through the 80s, well, especially through the early half of the 80s and 90s, so 80s and early 90s, the whole idea, the whole rationale for NATO existing was to counter Warsaw Pact. And the idea was basically when the Fulda Gap got overrun, um, in essence, the forces in Germany were going to fight a delaying action and allow more defence in depth further west. But in essence, the expectation was it was being built in, it was being created in um, expectation of the Reds coming west. Uh, Historically, what was shown was that, if anything, the Russians were more um, responded better to uh, threats of attack and actual military penetration of their airspace and territory than the West ever did. You've got um, plenty of examples where aggressive action was taken in international airspace and waters to shape up like an invasion was underway to prompt air defense responses. There was um, naval activity inside of the Kamchatka Peninsula, so internal waters, inside of Russian waters, to um, tap communication lines and everything else. The U2s and SR-71s conduct, well, not so much the SR-71s, but the U2s definitely flying directly over Russia, whereas the Russians were not conducting equivalent in response. It's one thing to have the big scare of the big bad Reds, but the history did show that every time there was a near conflict, it was predominantly the fault of the West making a mistake, and the Russians suddenly going, okay, and not reacting, or not overreacting, as the case may be. And I mean, there were sure mistakes in the other direction too, but most of them were pretty much one direction. Quite clearly, that Cold War mindset has never left. And people did ask after the fall of the Warsaw Pact, what is the purpose of NATO? Surely the underlying rationale for NATO existing has gone away. Historically, I think you should be looking north. They tended to stomp through Germany more than the Russians ever did. I don't think Sweden is going to come south and again anytime soon, but I keep an eye on them. It's just, yeah. Like I said, I get it. I understand it. You've got this nation, large nation nearby, who has been painted as the boogeyman the whole time you've been around, and your parents and their grandparents and stuff, and it's hard to let go of that. I think globally, nations like China and India, well, probably more Pakistan, but nations like China are more interesting because they've had massive military um, build up in the last 20 years. They've jumped from being of having zero space presence to having lots of their own launches and carrying out anti-satellite shots and everything like that. And they're a nation that it really isn't that friendly towards the West or other nations that have a very different way of thinking. But unless you border it or are nearby or inside their sphere of influence, people like him, whatever. But for those who are in their sphere of influence, yeah, I think they're the bigger threat. I don't think Russia's that sort of threat on a global level or even regional level. I don't think Russia has designs on Europe. It's it it's always good to be prepared. Being prepared is one thing. Beating the drums of war unnecessarily is another. And um, the for a while there, the fear was no longer um, organized military conflict, i.e., army versus army on the battlefield. It was irregular conflict or asymmetrical warfare. So one heavily armed side against irregulars, or it sort of then moved away more to stateless attacks. So terrorism being the greater threat, be it from internal or external, be the attempt to shift political positioning for nations. I mean, that kind of kicked up in the 70s with the PLO and things like that. But yeah, that sort of stuff. That was, I think, seen as the primary threat there for a while, particularly coming out of Yugoslavia because of how low grade a conflict that was, in a way. I mean, certainly the people being shot and being forced out of their homes didn't see it that way. But from a broader perspective, it's only ever really been regional and stuff since. Um, Maybe you should go and ask the CDU and the Greens why Germany's military position has been wound down so much over recent years. That's something, I guess. Well, true, and that's the thing. So yeah, the whole 2022 to now, it's given Russia a black eye, even if nothing else. It's gotten a black eye out of it, and it's going to take a generation to remediate its appeal slash uh, character. No, remediate its position in the world, I guess. I don't see. I mean, nations that used to be occupied or a part of the USSR, I don't think any of them are inclined to be friends with Russia anytime soon. So be it. But you look at history. Germany is back being part of um, accepted part of the world again. Talking about Sweden, 3/4 of Europe that was occupied by Sweden or stomped on by Sweden at some point is all cool with them again. It'll just take time. It'll take time. And again, that's another reason why I don't think this is going to go any further. There'd be certain signs that that would be the case, and they're just not there. Um, to bleed the people into the mud for 3 years when you've had the hardware and the capability to basically blitzkrieg your way across the West, and if that was what you were intending to, the outcome from the start, then you should have done that from the start, because you're not going to do it now that everyone's dug in. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff that if you weren't aware of military action and military operations and things like that, you wouldn't see it. You wouldn't see its absence as being telling, or you wouldn't see its lack of positioning, etc. as telling. So, for example, the whole repositioning of forces on the border in late 2021 was a clear marker that something was about to happen. Now, the fact it aligned with exercises they'd done the years before is misdirection. It's a case of they're there, they're ready to roll across. Let's go back to the Iraq invasion of 2003. The UK and US put thousands of troops into the Arabian Peninsula over Christmas, New Year 2002, 2003. Just position them and tons of logistics. Oh, we're here for an exercise. Exercises, whilst they're big and involved, aren't involved to that level. To anyone who was paying attention to the logistics and pre-positioning, the fact that those troops then stayed in position was, you don't just leave them sitting there. You don't move troops 3/4 of the way in the world, park them in the desert and not use them. And leave them there for 3 months and not touch them. It was clear from November, December 2002 that within 6 months there was going to be ground conflict in Iraq because of the pre-positioning, because of the logistic chains, because of the sort of things. Beans are more important than bullets. Beans and bullets. If you track the beans and bullets, you'll see what's going to happen. And so, yeah, Russia pre-positioning on the borders 2001 Christmas time was the marker that something was going to happen. But they misdirected by doing that as an annual exercise a couple of years before that. So, yeah. All right. So, Clive, I don't think we need the stalwart knights. Huzzah! 3/4 done on that as well. Let's leave the mines, go sell all our stuff. All right. We'll push it. We should be able to finish this side quest as well. Obviously, we stood around in the mines and speculated about geopolitics for a bit. Like I said, whole reason I put the channel up in the thing.
Can't believe they're letting that animal go free.
It's all the new blood in town. They're soft.
You
New
better
blood.
not show his face around here. That's all I'm saying.
I've been in town and saved the town and whatever. All right, let's go sell my stuff. You there? All right, let's go fly a kite. Go item type. Get rid of that, get rid of that. Get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. Exceptional is fine. Okay, what have we got here? That's a named item. I'm not going to sell that. I have no idea what that's for. I can sell that. Sell that. Sell that. Okay, if it's just fine and nothing else, it gets sold. The list. Oh yeah, I saw the stuff in Discord. Did you see my response that I'd watched a bunch of them, and I think Z4 C4 is probably their best one so far, and I think it really works well in the German. Yeah. It's almost like, I mean, I'd hate to make a sort of comparison. You said they're only a relatively new band. Like, they're not quite on the level of Sabaton. Not yet. But they're getting there. Z4 is definitely a big step towards that. I did go back and I did listen to the other stuff, like the Human Grind or Human Mill, whatever it was, and the others. I don't think they gelled quite properly there. They had the idea of, okay, we've got the music, we've got our words, put them together and Bob's your uncle. It feels that those earlier songs feel a little disjointed. It's like they don't quite line up properly. Whereas Z4 is, yep, the entire thing's integrated really well. Really well. And the film clip's pretty good too, I will say. That was pretty good as well. So yes, I did enjoy it. I also enjoyed the, it was Evanescence, sorry, Amy Lee, Poppy, and somebody at LaPlante, I forget her first name. It was 3 women, two from American metal bands, and funny enough, it only just recently came out as well. That turned out to be a really good track. Yeah, I don't know if you've listened much to that sort of stuff in the past, but yeah, it's all over YouTube at the moment. I'm not much into the scream metal, but one of the ladies who sings at scream metal, she was, yeah, really good at it. Okay, I think we're good. We'll trade off, and I will get more camping supplies. Trade, and in fact, I think contract of sale, I'll sell that. I don't want to be selling too much of this stuff, because I'm not using my potions to begin with. I mean, I'm going to have to be forced to sell this stuff at some point. I'm hanging on to it probably way too long. No, we're good. Okay, we're going to head for White Forge. Nope, not that way. But yeah, no, I saw your list. So anybody else who's hanging around in stream and is curious what we're talking about, if you head over to the Discord, there's a channel there called Street Corner, and Lord Typer's put a bunch of linked up videos to a German metal band that's something of a German Sabaton. So if you've ever heard of Sabaton, they've got a Swedish metal band that are very much based in history. Their songs, 90% of their songs are to do with military history or the history of Sweden and I guess Europe in various places as well. And yeah, they've made a good living from that. But yeah, this German band Lord Typer put up, they're on their way. I know no one's going to be able to see it because the lurker list doesn't show up all the time. But to the person who just joined and left, if you did leave, I got to say, I appreciate your username. That was that was pretty cool. Okay, I don't want to lose prestige. Gilded Veil. I'll send an escort, and what I might do is I'll send my rogue. Right, the Devil of Karok can go.
That was way too much Blackson.
Hello, yes. Who are you? You are sat on twice hang. You're a brigand. You're a brigand. Right, we'll go for you. Okay, bad things, bad things, bad things, bad things, bad things, bad things, bad things. Like my controller going flat, that's a bad thing too. Attack. Take the priest. Okay, we're going to go for combusting wounds. Who am I next to? Let's go like that. Okay, I also then will take... I don't need to revive anyone. Do I want to take raw damage? I'll go Flames of Devotion first. I'll attack there. Well, have you read All Quiet on the Western Front? Or books along those lines? It's remarkable. So I've not had the pleasure of reading all of it or anything just yet, but yeah, there is obviously, in comparison to, I guess, because I live in Australia, my exposure is more to Western media and stuff like that. There's a book. Give me a second. There's a couple of books more World War II books. Panzer Commander, I think is the one I was trying to think of. Panzer Ace as well, but I think, yeah, okay. So Panzer Ace, Panzer Commander, Soldat, and Blood Red Snow, I think. There's not a lot of books that we get to see that cover the German experience of war, but a handful of them that do come across are very, very good in translation. But yeah, I mean, All Quiet on the Western Front was rather well known. And I guess that feeds into the way the canony dudes sing. Alright. Right, okay, fine. I'm gonna go to the White Forge. I don't know if I'm supposed to go.
I can think of a better place for this stuff.
I picked up a fair amount of stuff. Nope, we're good. Alright, we need to go all the way up here. But to go back to, I guess, what we talked about before, for certain, reading books like All Quiet on the Western Front, we should be doing whatever we can as people to ensure that that sort of experience is never repeated. Right, in fact we should be able to knock off a second quest line here. One which I didn't think I was going to get through. Okay, all the workers have disappeared. No, there's one. Who are you? A worker. Alright, we want to go to White Forge. Right. She should be in here to talk to. Nope, nope. There you are. No. Pretty sure that we shouldn't. Like, I don't want to be deceptive. Alright, all the way back. And we go talk to Tarfos, and we should be done. Now, we took a minor reputation loss by sparing the thralled miner. So we want to step around that, I guess. All right, 10 minutes and we should be done.
Don't you ever miss it? The sound of your own tongue? The smell of something familiar on the cook fire?
Their absence is part of my suffering. I keep it close to my heart. It gives me strength.
If only absence could fill my belly as well as a good caribou shank.
Hooray! Hooray! Huzzah! That's two quests knocked over. Let's go hand in all the items that I just picked up. Okay, item type, sell, 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 sell. Sell. Okay, there's one more item. It's hiding somewhere. Probably that one. Or did I pick? I don't know if I picked that up. Quite possibly. Okay, sell, 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 trade. Sell. Stealthy's not bad. Spellbound shoes. No, they're not. They're not even unique. Unarmed strike. That sounds like it'd be good for Zawa, although he's now running around fully armed. Alright, trades are done. Let's have a look at what we got. If that's still running, if that's still running. Tasks. I went entirely the wrong way. We've got a bounty to follow. We could potentially go start K Newer. I mean, we finished risk tolerance, that's for sure. There's a couple of tasks that don't open up until we finish K Newer. Siege of Cragholt, sorry. We need to finish the Iron Flail first in order to get access to stuff. So let's do some crafting. Okay, can't cook any of that stuff just yet. Level 1 potions. I'm not using my stuff to begin with. Now that is interesting. Prevent death for 20 seconds. Well, I don't time my battles that well. Level 6 scrolls. Prayer of Treachery. I need more Orland's Cradle, which is a mushroom. I should really look at doing some of that stuff. I should also look at leveling up my gear, for example. Like, I'm not actually soulbound with anything, but if I say looked at his shield, could I? While it's fully upgraded, I can't enchant it, but I can enchant that. Like, what can I put on it? Kraken Eye. I need Kraken Eye. Where did I get Kraken Eye from? Or Sky Dragon Eye? Pick that up somewhere. Like, the idea is to want beast slaying for everything. If I get Durgan refined. Tempting, tempting. I'll get 5 items. So if that's Durgan's command share, we'll go Unforgiven and go enchant that. It's already exceptional. So the idea of going beast slaying is when we hit the dragons, they're considered beasts. Not sure what to do there, that's for sure. Alright, I think the main task next is to basically head and do the next main quest, or push along the Iron Flail. Tempted just to blast my way in. We'll go up there and well, save first, and then we're going to call it a night. Right. I probably should have rested. Probably. We're going to save and basically come back to this spot next week. So we'll drop everyone in a chat, close things out. Well, in the chat. It's pretty much chatting a lot of it tonight anyway. Oh, maybe not that. Nope. Nope. I gotta pick some different music. There we go. I gotta definitely put some different music on my mixing desk. Okay. We are gonna call it a night there. In fact, the console's screaming at me that my controller's flat. I'm like, oh yeah, it did say that, didn't it? Big thank you to everyone coming out tonight. Regulars, first timers, chatters, lurkers, and everybody in between. Very much appreciate having you here. Channel would not be the same without you. What do we got coming up next? Now, I was contemplating another day stream tomorrow. I'm not going to be around when that would normally kick off. I've got a couple of appointments I've got to get to. So we'll go with no. We'll take a break tomorrow. Look at doing it on Friday. It'll also give me a chance to punch out a bunch of the videos and get them converted and up and running. So there's a whole bunch of them sitting there ready to roll. So there will be, the next stream will be another Just Chatting stream. Then Friday night will also be Prince of Persia, Warrior Within. We're doing our blast through the second playthrough. Pick up the handful of missing artwork chests that we've got left and basically do our best to get through as quick as possible because we've got every other trophy. The Saturday stream should still be a multiplayer stream from our multiplayer server, currently on Minecraft SMP. Then Sunday will be our giveaway, which this week is a copy of Blanc. If you want in on that, head for the Discord. You'll find a channel in there called Giveaways. And head in there, find the blue button, click the blue button, and you'll automatically be in the draw. That gets drawn before Sunday's stream. This week we're looking at a copy of... What are we looking at actually? We're looking at what are we looking at? Infamous, Second Son, or one of the two Infamous games for the PlayStation 4. Whichever one is first, expect that. So that'll be Sunday. And then Monday, back with our Mass Effect playthrough and rolling through to next week. I will give some advance notice. Wednesdays and Thursdays for the next couple of weeks, mainly Thursdays, busy. So the Just Chatting streams, no, not on Thursdays. Oh, that was not looped. Well, we better finish soon then. Yeah, so that's the schedule, and we'll be back here again next Wednesday. Keep on top of things. There is a schedule on Twitch. Kick doesn't let me put a schedule up, at least I haven't found out how to do it. And attempting to do it in YouTube just makes YouTube get confused when I go live because it doesn't know which of the scheduled streams I'm planning on streaming, even though I've told it the dates and times for each one. Yeah, that seems to be a YouTube issue. That's been around for at least 5 years. So that's okay. It'll just be the one stream in advance noticed on YouTube. If you want to keep on top of things and know when stuff's going on, check the socials, which I've just punched out. Because messages go out on the Twitter and Insta before each stream, indicating what we're when. And you will see the Insta cap read across onto the Discord as well. Discord's also where the giveaways happen, and it also punches a message out when the stream goes live, and the streams of a few of our friends over there. So if you want to, support the community, there's probably the best place to be would be over on over on Discord. Other than that, it's a very good night from me to all of you, and we'll see you all again next stream.